Coming up in our newscast tonight. President Moon Jae-in holds an extended ministerial meeting and mentions devising measures to complement some of his economic policies. He also hints at the possibility of slowing down the pace of raising the minimum wage. Meanwhile, the finance chief places emphasis on inclusive growth, adding that in 2019, the economy will expand at a rate similar to this year. Seoul and Pyongyang wrap up joint inspections of railways in North Korea. Next week, the two sides plan to hold a ceremony to mark the start of a joint project to connect and modernize inter-Korean roads and railways. South Korea's three main political parties agreed to hold a plenary session on the December 27th to vote on pending bills. They also plan to discuss ways to reform the nation's electoral system. News Center begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome to our program. I'm Daniel Che. President Moon Jae-in hinted the government may need to slow down some of its enacted policies like higher minimum wage in order to boost economic growth. It's also called for patience from the people until these policies show results. Shin Se-min starts us off.
President Moon Jae-in, for the first time, has introduced coming up with measures to complement some of the economic policies the government has introduced this year. Chairing the extended ministerial meeting on the economy in another first, it was a show of determination that his administration will be zeroing in on the economy next year. And to spur on the slowing economy, he said the government might slow down the pace at which it's raising the minimum wage, given the backlash from small businesses and the self-employed.
최저임금 인상, 노동시간 단축과 같은 새로운 경제 정책은 경제 사회의 수용성과 이해관계자의 입장을 조화롭게 고려해 국민의 공감 속에서 추진하는 것이 무엇보다 중요합니다. 필요한 경우 보완 조치도 함께 강구해야 할 것입니다.
He said the same goes for other key economic policies, ordering his officials to be cautious when it comes to the policy's possible adverse repercussions. The idea of slowing down the wage hike is in tune with what Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi said when he told lawmakers that in the new year he will take into account the acceptability of a wage hike to the market. Employers have complained that they can't afford the new wages, which have gone up some 11% this year alone. They say they have had to lay people off to make ends meet. President Moon also said the government should aggressively get rid of obstacles to corporate investment because weak investment has added downward pressure on the economy already grappling with slowing exports. When it comes to his administration's core economic initiative of inclusive growth, President Moon stood firm. He called for patience and trust until the policies bear fruit and ordered his officials to prove to the public with achievements that the policies are in fact heading in the right direction. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Seoul's finance chief, meanwhile, said he believes economic growth next year will be similar to this year at 2.6 to 2.7%. Hong Nam-gi stressed the importance of making growth inclusive, highlighting that the global economy is at a turning point as wealth polarization worsens. Kim Jong-il shares with us his remarks.
In a briefing held on Monday concerning the government's economic plans for next year, the Minister of Economy and Finance, Hong Nam-gi, said the government's emphasis on inclusive growth is vital as the local economy faces growing external risks, including the trade protectionism, which are expected to further affect Korea's exports. Even though household income and domestic consumption have risen, he said there's still work to be done when it comes to economic indicators in employment and income distribution, and he said the government's plans are focused on these issues.
Venture capital investments reached a record high of nearly $2.7 billion this year, and new startups, particularly among the youth, are rising. However, investment from the private sector, the main source of jobs, is still sluggish.
While the government strengthens its drive to deregulate, it will also come up with ways for both traditional and new innovative industries to prosper together. The minister also said the government will come up with measures by the end of this year to spur innovation in the languid manufacturing sector, as well as measures to revitalize promising areas of the services sector and to help the self-employed. Hong also vowed by February to reform the process that determines the country's minimum wage increases in a way that will improve its predictability and fairness so that all parties in the labor market can accommodate the changes, starting with the wage increases for 2020. He pledged to work on expanding the flexible work system from the current 3 months also by February, indicating that the government will continue to support the 52-hour weekly cap on working hours. Through these efforts, Hong said the government aims to achieve an annual growth rate of 2.6% or 2.7% for next year, downgraded from the previous 2.8% forecast earlier this year. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
A local think tank downgraded its growth projection for South Korea in 2019. Slowing global economy and sluggish domestic demand are cited as some of the reasons behind this decision. Ko Roon-hee help us look beyond the numbers.
The Hyundai Research Institute has cut South Korea's growth forecast for 2019 to 2.5%. This is down from the previous forecast of 2.6% announced in September. It's the lowest projection yet among other major organizations, including the OECD's outlook of 2.8% and the Bank of Korea's 2.7%. According to the Institute's report released on Sunday, the main reasons for the downgraded outlook were the global economic slowdown and fears over low domestic demand. The global economic slowdown will affect the increased rate of South Korean exports. Outbound shipments are likely to increase by 3.7% in 2019, sharply down from this year's estimate of 6.2%. One reason is a trade war between the U.S. and China. Although the leaders of the world's biggest economies reached a deal to temporarily keep their countries' trade tensions from escalating earlier this month, there are still risks because U.S. tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods can go up after 90 days. Either way, the trade war can negatively affect South Korea as well because many local companies rely on exports to China and the U.S. Another reason is that the global semiconductor market is losing steam. According to data from World Semiconductor Trade Statistics in November, the growth rate of the global semiconductor market will mark 2.6% next year, far lower than this year's estimate of almost 16%. The Institute also pointed to reasons closer to home. Private consumption is expected to increase by 2.4% next year, down from this year's estimate of 2.7%. This is mainly due to low consumer sentiment coming from a decrease in newly added jobs and an increase in the unemployment rate. Facilities investment, on the other hand, is expected to edge up 0.4%, up from this year's estimate of negative growth due to the government's push for innovative growth. Ko Roon-hee, Arirang News.
Seouls inspectors who surveyed the North's eastern Donghae rail line wrapped up their work and returned home today. The team told reporters that they shared the vision of railway connection with their North Korean counterparts and also explained some additional work are needed to devise specific plans for constructions. Here's Oh Jung-hee with the details.
South and North Korea wrapped up their joint inspections of railways in North Korea and are well on the way to the groundbreaking ceremony scheduled next week. 28 South Korean officials and experts who had been in the north for an on-site survey of the eastern Donghae rail line returned home on Monday. Since December 8th, they've been checking the section between the North's Kumsusan Mountain and Tumangang River, moving by bus and train with their North Korean counterparts.
On the Donghae line, our final point was a friendship bridge between North Korea and Russia. It was very touching for all 28 of us to have completed the inspections up until there.
I believe a lot of us dream of coming and going between the south and north through that route we've never taken and being connected to the continent via train. We shared such determination with our North Korean counterparts.
It was the first time South Koreans have surveyed the eastern Donghae line. Moving along almost 800 kilometers of railway, the inspectors focused on the rail operation system and the structures, like tracks, bridges, and tunnels, using testing devices from the south to help them.
About 10 kilometers of bridges and tunnels between Kumsusan Mountain and Anbyeon had especially deteriorated. Technicians say trains aren't running there and can run in some sections only when necessary. Up to the Dumangang River, trains can run at a speed of 30 kilometers per hour. The rail condition isn't too good, and we thought it'd be impossible for speedy operation.
Train cars of both south and north traveled together throughout the inspection. There were 11 carriages in total, with 5 from Pyongyang and 6 from Seoul.
When moving on the train, experts gathered together to share what they had surveyed and what needs to be done. They had discussions in various fields.
The South Korean team added there should be additional surveys and knowledge sharing with the North to take further steps. This completes the two Koreas' overall joint railway inspections. They took a look at the western Gyeonggi rail line 2 weeks ago and cross-border sections back in July. Seoul and Pyongyang will hold a groundbreaking ceremony next week at the North's Panmun station to mark the start of connecting and modernizing roads and railways between each other. Seoul is sending an advance team to the location this week. But actual construction will start later in accordance with the North's denuclearization and waivers on sanctions. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
The nation's Joint Chiefs of Staff confirmed the demolition and disablement of the designated North Korean guard posts in the demilitarized zone. This comes after Seoul and Pyongyang removed 10 GPs and disarmed 1 each back in November, then conducted on-site inspections together last week. Kan Young-woo zooms in on how the two sides are working to implement the comprehensive military agreements signed back in September.
On Monday, South Korea's military confirmed that the demolition or disarmament of 11 guard posts on the North Korean side of the border has been completed after its on-site inspection last week and additional analysis over the last few days. Announcing the results of last Wednesday's on-site joint verification of guard post demolition, the Joint Chiefs of Staff said the two Koreas' militaries see eye to eye in that the pre-selected guard posts on each side are no longer capable of carrying out any military activities. During the on-site verification last week, South Korea sent 11 inspection crews made up of 7 members each to the North guard posts in the morning. North Korea also sent its 11 teams across the military demarcation line to conduct their verification work in the afternoon. Although North Korea is confirmed to have pulled out all troops and weapons from the disabled guard posts, not everything has been removed from the sites. A military official said 1 or 2 kernels or gun slits were observed near 5 of the 11 guard posts, but are believed to not be functional. North Korea's inspection teams reportedly gave a positive on-site assessment of the South's disablement of its guard posts, but demanded that the South remove the remains of torn-down wire fences that used to surround the guard posts. With Monday's confirmation, the South and North are now known to have about 50 and 150 guard posts standing in the demilitarized zone, respectively.
In conclusion, both Koreas confirmed that through the on-site inspections, we have fully implemented the agreement to pull out 11 guard posts on a trial basis, as stated in the September's comprehensive military accord.
The Joint Chiefs of Staff added that while the country's military continues to maintain a strong security posture, it will support the peace process on the Korean Peninsula. Kan Young-woo, Arirang News.
Pyongyang condemned Washington for stepping up sanctions and further pressuring the regime. North Korea warned that there may be a return to, quote, an exchange of fire, and the denuclearization process could be dead in the water. Lee Seung-jae gets us up to speed with the developments.
Efforts to denuclearize North Korea have made little progress since the historic summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and U.S. President Donald Trump in June, where both sides agreed to work on denuclearizing the Korean peninsula. That goal may have hit another snag as Pyongyang issued a fresh warning on Sunday. It said if Washington continues to escalate its sanctions and human rights campaign against the North, the approach could permanently end any chance of denuclearizing the regime. The statement by North Korea's foreign ministry was carried by the regime's official Korean Central News Agency. The ministry said that if the U.S. believes North Korea would give up its nuclear weapons by increasing sanctions and their human rights racket to an unprecedented level, it would be the, quote, greatest miscalculation. It added such moves will block the path to denuclearization on the Korean peninsula forever, a result desired by no one. The ministry's statement was released under the name of the Policy Research Director of the Institute for American Studies. The warning came after the U.S. sanctioned 3 North Korean officials last week, including Choi Ryong-hae, a top aide to Kim Jong-un. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The U.S. State Department insisted the denuclearization agreement signed by President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at the Singapore summit will be carried out, responding to North Korea's statement that the path to denuclearization could be blocked if America keeps increasing sanctions on the regime. Washington remains confident the commitments made by the two leaders will be fulfilled. According to Voice of America, the State Department said it is Kim's promise to denuclearization the world is focused on. It added the goal is still to achieve the final and fully verified denuclearization of the regime as committed to by the North Korean leader. 7 years ago on this date, former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il passed away. Citizens of the regime have been paying tribute to him. So too did the current leader Kim Jong-un. Pyongyang state media Korean Central News Agency reported Monday that Kim visited the Kumsusan Palace of the Sun to commemorate the death of his father. This is Kim Jong-un's first public appearance in 2 weeks since visiting a shoes factory in Wonsan. The regime's state-run daily, the Rodong Shinmun, posted a number of stories about the late leader since Sunday, highlighting his achievements in economic developments and how he helped improve people's livelihoods instead of military achievements. The United Nations will adopt a resolution on North Korea's human rights violations on Monday local time. The resolution strongly condemns the regime's long-standing and ongoing violations of human rights and was approved by consensus without a vote last month. This will be the 14th straight year the UN adopted a resolution to the matter. As for the reasons for passing the resolution, it has listed North Korea's serious human rights violations, including torture, rape, and public executions. It also urges the Security Council to take appropriate measures to hold the abusers accountable. But for the first time this year, it included that it welcomes Seoul and Washington's current diplomatic efforts with Pyongyang. President Moon Jae-in expressed his determination to make South Korea a nation that is more inclusive. Have a listen.
우리 정부는 포용 국가 건설을 국정 목표로 삼고 많은 정책 역량을 투입하고 있습니다. 가난하더라도 누구나 인간다운 삶을 살 수 있어야 하기 때문입니다.
In a meeting with his top aides, the South Korean leader said the government's pledge will become more tangible as it expands health insurance coverage for hospital expenses, sonograms, and MRIs. He also pledged financial support for families taking care of relatives with dementia and other disabilities, as well as support for families raising children and newlyweds. The president emphasized it's important for his administration to cast a wider and denser social welfare net so that the public can benefit from it. Moon also called for a closer cooperation with relevant organizations and local governments to make Korea an inclusive country. At the National Assembly, a plenary session to vote on pending bills is set for next Thursday. The agreement was reached between the floor leaders of the three main parties. They met to discuss the specific agenda for the December extraordinary session that kicked off today. The parties agreed to review bills related to raising transparency and rooting out accounting fraud at private kindergartens, form a special committee to hold a parliamentary probe into hiring irregularities in the public sector, and consider measures to cushion the side effects of a minimum wage hike coming up next month. Another big issue, how to reform the country's electoral system. The smaller parties want to expand proportional representation, where the number of seats they get is in proportion to the percentage of the vote they get nationwide. Right now, South Koreans get one vote for a representative for their district and another vote for a party. In the 300-member parliament, 253 seats are single-member districts and 47 members are chosen by proportional representation. The fuel surcharge on plane tickets sold in Korea is coming down next month. An airline industry official told Yonhap News Agency that for a one-way international flight booked in January, the maximum fuel surcharge will be reduced by almost 50% to around $40. The fuel surcharge for January is determined based on the average price of the benchmark Singapore jet fuel from mid-November to mid-December, which was around $1.81 per gallon. The surcharge is imposed when the average fuel price is $1.50 per gallon or higher. The maximum surcharge for domestic flights will also drop by nearly half next month. That'll be about $4. High-flying business travelers selected Seoul as the best place for international gatherings. The choice was made easy thanks to the city's increased efforts to host global conventions and exhibitions over the past decade. Oh Soo-young explains further.
Seoul has been named the best city in the world to hold meetings, conferences and exhibitions for the fourth consecutive year. Seoul Metropolitan Government said Monday that the city topped travel magazine Global Travelers' annual rankings, which are based on a survey of 105,000 frequent business travelers and high-income subscribers. Dubai came in second place, followed by Singapore, London and Hong Kong. Seoul first claimed the top spot in 2013 before losing out to Singapore the following year. But since 2015, South Korea's capital city has remained the most attractive destination for business gatherings and exhibitions.
International visitors have noted Seoul's unique harmony of traditional and modern qualities, as well as convenient accommodation, transportation, and conference facilities. We plan to continue growing the MICE sector in scale and quality, as well as supporting workers in the industry.
The MICE industry has been one of South Korea's key growth sectors since 2009, when the central government officially identified the sector as one of its 17 new growth engine industries. Among the scores of large-scale global conferences held in the Korean capital, major milestones include the G20 Seoul Summit in 2010 and 2 nuclear security summits. Based on a report last year by the Union of International Associations, South Korea has been the world's top destination for international meetings for 2 straight years, with nearly 1,300 meetings hosted in the country in 2017. That accounts for some 13% of the total number of international meetings that year. In terms of cities, Seoul ranked third with 688 meetings, following Singapore and Brussels. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Global pop sensation BTS has become the first Korean act to have 8 music videos with more than 300 million views on YouTube. The K-pop group's mega hit Idol reached more than 300 million YouTube views on Monday, according to their management agency. The song becomes the boy band's 8th music video to surpass the 300 million mark. Those 8 include DNA, which has attracted more than 500 million views, and their songs Fire and Dope, which have both drawn 400 million views. Other Korean music videos that have topped the 300 million mark include Blackpink's Tudu Tudu and Psy's Gangnam Style Gentleman and Oppa is Just My Style. Arirang TV has been developing a new way to record and air shows using smartphones, and it's using this method for the first time to broadcast live a special Christmas show by its radio department. Hong Yu tells us more.
Arirang TV has taken its use of smartphones to the next level. After its success using smartphones to make news reports, Arirang TV is now broadcasting a show live, recorded entirely on smartphones. On Monday, Arirang Radio opened up its studio to its listeners to celebrate Christmas with live performances from K-pop stars. These performances were aired live and watched all around the world on Arirang Radio's YouTube and VLive accounts. But instead of cameras, smartphones did the job of recording the show. Arirang TV has developed a smartphone broadcasting system that uses several smartphones to deliver live performances. With this new system, broadcasting live has become simpler and cheaper. The number of people needed to do such a job has been reduced from more than 20 to less than 5 people. And now 4 or 5 smartphones can do the job of an outside broadcast fan. Monday's show, called Turn Up Party Radio Gaga, featured K-pop stars Yubin, Hotshot, Dreamcatcher, and Intuit, and was broadcast live on YouTube and VLive. For those that missed the live broadcast, the show will be aired on Christmas from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Hong Yu, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle back at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, fine dust has somewhat dispersed by now, but seems like we will be blanketed with more dust again tomorrow.
Yes, Daniel, more toxic fine dust is expected to pull up the dust pollution levels too bad. In particular, these areas in orange will be heavily affected. So for those of you who are living in these areas, please take all necessary precautions. And temperature-wise, Tuesday afternoon in Korea will be relatively mild. Beijing and Tokyo also show similar forecast. But that's only in the afternoon. The morning readings are still in the negative territory. Seoul will start the day with -2 degrees Celsius and Chuncheon at -6. And the daily highs will surpass seasonal average levels as well, with Seoul reaching up to 7 degrees Celsius and southern regions warming up to double-digit temperatures. Dry and crisp conditions will continue this week, with the many places surpassing average daytime highs. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for you on tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. As always, thank you for staying with us.